Welcome to the final Gilberto hour of the season and Gilberto's hour. There you go. I got to say it right. But yeah, it's a little weird that here we are, week 18, and no Thursday night football game. It is Thursday, right? I lost track. During this time of year, you don't know what day it is. Is it Sunday, Saturday, it's Wednesday, Thursday? And Happy New Year to everybody here. And that's the last time I'll say Happy New Year. We are January 2nd. I don't like to say that to January 2nd. Man, 3, 4. No more Happy New Year. Let's move on. 2025 is here. Let's have a good year in 25. I'm sure 2024 was good for all of us, hopefully. If not, then 2025 is going to be your year. But yeah, little funky week 18 finale for Gilberto's hour. People are going to bench your star players. We will not. I'm going to be here. I'm showing up. Victor's going to show up in a bit. Fernando and Dan, where are they? Those guys are taking the week off like they're the Kansas City Chiefs, or for Dan's sake, like who else is sitting? I forget. Whatever. But they're not everyday players like we are here on Gilberto's Hour. So enough bashing, my guys, Dan and Fernando. I'll have Victor jump on right now to break down Week 18 because we do have a couple, and I mean a couple, just 2 games to break down here in Gilberto's Hour. How you doing, Victor?
Doing pretty good there, Gilbert. Yeah, Happy New Year. This will be the last day I tell you Happy New Year, and then we'll move on and we'll we'll just talk about football here. But yeah, not a lot of games to kind of go over. We have Vikings, Lions, and we have Bengals and Steelers, and then we'll do our best bets as we always do. There are some games we want to bet on, even though it's a short week, and then just want to give a shout out to Robert D, who followed us from House of Horns. I wanted to get some of his questions on here because he has some good questions on House of Horns. So he says, I'm here, laugh out loud. So
There you
awesome.
go.
Good to have you on here, Robert D. But yeah, we have a lot to get into. And I hope everybody had a good New Year's, safe and sound. And we're ready to go, Gilbert.
Yeah, we'll talk week 18 best bets, but also we understand that people like to play fantasy football in week 18. I don't know why. Maybe get help. You love fantasy football too much, or maybe you need a new commissioner because people are going to be, benching their star players. Teams might be playing for a better draft pick. You just don't know what to expect in week 18. So that makes it confusing. So, but if you have fantasy football questions, our guy here, Victor Javier Corona, can help you out. He was in the title game. I shouldn't remind Victor, but a
Yeah.
loss as a runner up there. But
Yeah.
Victor still knows plenty. I will try to help out the best I can. And I think for the maybe this is where I chime in because I know a good amount of backups in the NFL. Well, not too many, but I know a good amount of backups you can play.
Yeah.
And we'll try to help you out here if you are in need of fantasy football advice. And also, who am I to talk? We're talking about NFL betting. Betting in week 18 is difficult too. So maybe we need help here on Gilberto's Hour. But overall, it's one more week of football. We want to talk about it. We want to end the season on a bang here. We've been doing Gilberto's Hour for 2 years technically here, but it's the first time we do it under that name. We have a different format. We're trying
Yep.
new things here. So thank you for being on the show and helping us out, supporting, and just be willing to hear us out when we try new things. So we really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's been a good process. We changed up a couple things, but yeah, it's been good so far. And then in terms of fantasy football, I have a question for you, Gilbert. I know we're gonna get to our top two matchups, but after kind of seeing now that fantasy football is over, who do you project? Do you have a top five or even a top? Who will be the top pick in next year's draft, fantasy draft?
Yeah, as you know, Victor, people like to go off of what they saw last year, and that's how they do their top 10 for the first round of the fantasy football draft. And as we know, it never really shakes out that way. So, yeah, definitely always be willing to try new things and look ahead.
Yeah,
That's where I get in trouble. I look ahead too much, where I forget about what happened last year and I get burned. But you also got to be aware that not everything stays the same in the NFL. But obviously, Saquon Barkley is going to be up there. Derrick Henry. And it's going to be tricky, Victor, because these are not young running backs. They're older. Like, do you
hmm
take Bijan Robinson just because he's younger, but not better than Saquon Barkley? That's going to be tricky. Maybe Jameer Gibbs finally moves up as a first round draft pick. I think he was more in the second round range because of the Dave Montgomery factor there. Uh, but I would not be surprised if Jamar Chase is the number one wide receiver. But in the year of like, if you had a good running back, you probably found yourself in a fantasy football title game. But without a doubt, Jamar Chase was the best playmaker overall in fantasy football. So in some combination, Jamar Chase, Obviously, Justin Jefferson,
Yep.
uh, and then obviously the running backs Saquon, Derrick Henry, Gibbs, Bijan. That's kind of my top 8 right now.
Yeah, I would say it's going to be Saquon number one. I think we'll be on top of a lot of boards. And like you said, I think you can't forget about the running about the wide receivers with Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. I think those would be the next two that will go, and then we'll see what turn what happens with the rest of those running backs like Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, Jameer Gibbs. A lot of those running backs are going to start to move up in the draft, and you'll see some guys that were bust this year kind of move back, and I think those are the guys you kind of need to keep an eye on, like CMC. What happens to
Hmm.
CMC going forward? He was the number one pick, so
How far do you
keep
think he falls in, or average ADP for CMC? You think?
if he's I think he's gonna kind of you're gonna see what happened with him in Saquon a couple years ago as well, where he goes into the second round. I remember I picked him up in a couple second round, and I got to the title game with him, and then of course he shot up back to the number one pick again. So I think when he was with Carolina, he kind of fell off because he missed those 2 years, but. We'll see what happens next season. I think he's going to go in the second or third round for sure.
Yeah, my thing is I favor too many first and second year players, and I'm not gonna lie, I didn't even think about Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley because
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, they're old. No way. And my first pick, because I thought I was gonna be like what was I, fifth or sixth? I thought I was gonna have Bijan Robinson. I'm like, I'm all in. He's younger. He's gonna
Yep.
be better. He was still very good, but he wasn't as good as those older running backs. So that's where I got burned. But somebody took Bijan, our league champion, who
Look at our league
I don't
championship.
want to say his name, but he took Bijan away from me, and maybe he has more satisfaction that he took him away from me. But I'm not going to
Yeah.
complain. Jamar Chase, I was shocked that Jamar Chase was available like top 6 for me. You were shocked he got Justin Jefferson available.
Yeah.
So you just never know how this first round's going to play out, and then maybe the way that maybe you're going to be disappointed that you didn't get the first round pick you wanted. But then that's where you fall into like, oh, the
Yeah.
gem here, a gem over here, a breakout player over here, a guy who got overlooked over here, and then suddenly you're in the title game. So you never know.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And like Robert D says, Henry has led the AFC in rushing the past 2 years. So
Yeah, he
I
doesn't get
mean,
old, man. But what if
no,
it's next year? Now I'm be overthinking it. Watch like, oh, maybe this is the
yeah,
year Father Time gets him.
yeah, but and it'll be interesting because you're gonna have Genty out of Boise State, who a lot of people are
Oh,
gonna try to, we've seen we see Malik Neighbors, some other guys come in and do well in their first season. So we'll see where some of these guys go, but we're here to break down these two matchups of the week. And of course, our headline is game 256, Vikings at Lions. The Lions are 2.5 point favorites. The over under here is 56.5. Where do you want to start with this matchup, Gilbert?
yeah, I'll go with Detroit. And it's funny because I can't get a sense of where the public and where the sharps are going. And, I do a story for SI.com where I talk to, some of the betting experts or odds makers in Las Vegas. And John Murray from the Westgate told me like, I honestly can't tell you an answer of who's going where, Lions or the Vikings, because they got a big sharp play on the Lions, I think on Tuesday, and he said the line moved to -3 Lions, and that caused a lot of people to get the Vikings just out of the number. It wasn't, hey, we think the Vikings are better. It's just, oh, you get +3 for the Vikings, we'll take that here, and it could be a very close game. So obviously, you factor in the number, and that's how you go from a betting standpoint. But I think to me that at least tells me, okay, if people are waiting for the right number, then maybe that means they're very concerned about the Lions being the team that we all think they're going to be. It's just there's hesitation because the defense got banged up. They don't really have a second. They don't have a second there or even pass rushers, and they got a little bit exposed by the 49ers on Monday night. They still put up points on them. They definitely got exposed by the Buffalo Bills. I think the Bills only punted one time against that defense. But the tricky part, Victor, is they still have an elite offense, maybe the best offense in the NFL. It didn't work out against Buffalo, but if you get maybe 3 to 4 stops, maybe that offense is enough there. So obviously, I was enough in Santa Clara for the 49ers game on Monday night. But I saw Jared Goff, pick apart Brian Flores' defense in Week 7 in Minnesota, so I feel good about that. But what if Sam Darnold has a field day with Justin Jefferson and Addison on that defense? So, to me, I think the Vikings are getting a little more love here, and I'm gonna go with what I've seen for most of the year. People just forget because of injuries, and the hotter team is Minnesota. I'm gonna take the Lions. I'll take them. -3 is a lot for me. I wish it was -2.5, but we have it at -2.5 right now, so I'll take that. But I know at the Westgate, people were really jumping to get the -3 or +3 for the Vikings because that little small difference could definitely decide it here in a very close game. So I'll take the Lions -2.5. -3, I'm definitely thinking about the Vikings here.
Yeah, and I mean those are some very good points. We have Robert D says the winner will win the NFC North. Yeah, that is correct. The
Mhm.
winner of this wins the NFC North and gets the number one seed, and we'll get the first round bye. And I'll start off with one of the questions that Robert D asked us, and it has to do with Sam Darnold. And do I think that Sam Darnold can do this in the playoffs? And I think they've been in playoff games now, Gilbert, going up against the Seahawks, going up against the Packers, and he's played great. And I think this is another. I said on Four Compas, I believe the Vikings are winning this division. I just think they're the better team right now. They're in terms of, you look at their offense, you look at their special teams, you look at their defense, they are a complete team, Gilbert. And I think part of the reason that a lot of people are still sleeping on this team is because of Sam Darnold. And now people are starting to see the last couple of weeks, they're starting to believe in Sam Darnold. And I'm like, where you guys been? Like, I understand that, you continue to look at what he's done. There's that picture that was circulating this week of uh Baker and Darnold with Carolina, and they just became the first teammates. I think they're they're the second set of teammates to go on and throw for over 30 touchdowns with a different team. And it just tells you that sometimes getting a change of scenery can help you out. But in terms of the Vikings, like we said, you have Brian Flores, who's been outstanding, and we saw what he did. He made changes to when he first faced uh, Jordan Love, to what we saw last week, and I think he's going to do the same thing to Jared Goff. The thing, I love the Lions, but I think they have way too many injuries in that defense. And look, when you give up that many points to the 49ers should not have been in that game, especially when the Detroit Lions decided to play all their starters, which I didn't understand. Like, even if you lost that game, it wouldn't have mattered because this is your number one priority now. You need to win. The team that needs the first round bye the most in the NFC is the Lions. If you don't get the bye, I just don't see the Lions going very far, Gilbert.
Yeah, I agree with some of the things you're saying, Victor. It's just I credit Dan Campbell. I was back and forth with this, and I'm like, okay, you should probably rest your players. You're banged up, and then I'm like, no, that's kind of the safe way out. That's not what Dan Campbell does. He wants. I bet you he motivated the crap out of his team by saying, "You want a week off? Go earn the damn number one seed. We're not gonna give you a week off, but give me a week off here instead before you play the biggest game of the regular season." So imagine you took a week off on Monday night. You're rusty. You're trying to get back in sync. This offense is in sync. They just dropped 40 points on the 49ers. I saw some stat, I can't remember the numbers, but they compared to the greatest show on turf. So this
Yeah.
offense is very good. They're rolling. And I think Dan Campbell used that motivation. You want the week off, you better go earn it. Week 18, and they're at home. They're in Detroit. So to me, I think that is a big factor for me. And I'll say this: you're right that the Vikings are the more complete team, Victor. But if you have to go touchdown for touchdown, back and forth with an elite offense with Jared Goff, who's been in the playoffs, Sam Darnold has never started a playoff game.
Yep.
It's going to feel like that week 18. Like, can you go shot for shot where, okay, cool, it's going to be a shootout. Can Sam Darnold do that on every drive, on every occasion to put up points? He has the weapons, but I worry about that. So if it's a shootout, I will favor the Lions. But yeah, you're right. Maybe Brian Flores gets the number here for Jared Goff, and maybe they don't score as much. Maybe it's in the 20s. Then I definitely favor the Vikings. If it goes into the 30s, I think they do something very well. It's kind of like the Ravens. They're elite at one aspect. Can that one elite area really help you out? I think it can. And I'll say this: another factor for the Lions, and I think people are really are making a big deal about the injuries. Yes, they're gonna definitely hinder them defensively, but I think the playoff experience from last year is gonna help them out. I know it's not the playoffs just yet, but it's going to help them out Say they are the fifth seed, I could definitely see them winning some road games because they played the 49ers on the road last year. They learned their experiences from last year. I think that factors in a little bit. The Vikings really have only played one playoff game with Kevin O'Connell, and that was the Giant. They lost to the Giants, right? And Daniel
Yep.
Jones. I was
Yep.
surprised there. So they're still a young team overall. So with a Week 18 game where everything's on the line, you kind of favor the more experienced team. So I'm gonna go off of that. And I know it's funny that I'm saying this because people don't believe in Sam Darnold. Now I think way too many people are believing on the Vikings. So from a betting
Yeah.
standpoint, it's
No,
like,
I get it.
yeah, I'll stick with the regular. But the other part too is the Lions have been a public darling all year. People have been making money off the Lions. So there's really no side to it when it comes to the betting standpoint here. But
Yeah.
to me, I'm just gonna go with what I've seen, and I think just people are very quick to forget that the Lions are 14-2 as well.
Yeah, no, and I mean those are really good points by you. And I mean, my biggest thing, Gilbert, I think one of the things I'll be watching is whether the defensive coordinator, and I always kind of forget his name, and maybe you can remind me of the Lions defensive coordinator
Oh, Aaron Glenn.
and Aaron Glenn, whether he sticks to playing man to man against this
Yeah,
Vikings offense in Justin Jefferson and Addison, because if he does, they're just going to shred him. And I just want to see whether on the other side with the Vikings, do they stay? Do they stay aggressive? Kind of like what we saw the Bills do, where you're gonna need to outscore the Lions no matter what, right? You need to stay with them, blow by blow. And so I want to see whether or not Kevin O'Connell decides, hey, if it's fourth and short, I need to go for it here because I need to stay with this team. Even if you jump out to a 14-point lead, if you're the Vikings, that is not safe against this Lions offense, as you mentioned. It's high powered. And even with Devin Montgomery being out, they still been able to score points. You've seen uh Williams the Jamo take the next step in his in him getting better. So yeah, yeah, and Thomas Wilson says here the Lions have 24 players on IR. I mean,
yeah.
that's a lot of players, Gilbert. And so we'll see what happens. And then to Robert D, it says reports are Hutchinson is running now, so he may be ready for the playoff run. We might not see him. It sounds like to either the bye week of between the NFC Championship game and the Super Bowl. So, but we'll see. I mean, I heard a story about Tyler Higbee and him, trying to get back from an I think it was an Achilles or something with the Rams when they went on their Super Bowl run, and then he wasn't ready to go. So it's hard. It's a long rehab process, and so you kind of just want to make sure that you do the best for Hutchinson because he's got a long career ahead of him, and you don't want to rush him back and have him be injured again.
Yeah, and I understand there's a bunch of injuries, and I know they lost David Montgomery on offense, but that's pretty much it on the offensive side. That's why my point is they're at home and they have an elite offense still. They have Jameer Gibbs, who's definitely answered the calls, the lead back. There's some kind of concern like, hey, can he be the lead back? Can he start off games? Yeah, they're much faster now with Jameer Gibbs being the lead running back. So I'm not too worried offensively there. Again, they have a very tough home crowd environment,
Yep.
and you know that Dan Campbell is going to press the gas there on fourth down. So uh, if I'm the Vikings, I'm slowing that damn game down.
Yeah.
Yeah, Aaron Jones, here's more handoffs. I get you have Jefferson and Addison, but you don't want to go shot for shot against this offense. You will get in trouble that way. I get Buffalo did it, but I just can't imagine Detroit having only forcing one punt against a divisional rival you know very well. You've had some time to adjust to the injuries. If they only allow one punt, then Aaron Glenn, what the hell are you doing? So I'm gonna give him the benefit of doubt here. He's gonna learn his lesson from that Buffalo game and even from the 49ers game. But I just don't want to count out that offense. Like, and even Samuel Porter has played well. You mentioned Jameson Williams, Amon Ra. But my pick on the Lions is definitely no knock on Sam Darnold. I know what Sam Darnold is capable of. He's been playing well. And I can't wait for this game. That's why I'm hesitant to take the Lions if it's -3. It's going to be a pretty close game here.
Yeah, and then to Robert D's to your point here too, he says I'd say the Lions have the best O line in the NFL. So
Yeah, that's
and
why
he's
Gibbs
right.
is still doing well.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, no matter what, you can rely on that running game. And we've seen what I mean, having a good play action game, which a lot of offenses. I just don't understand why they don't use more of it. This is why I love the Vikings and the Vikings and the Lions. Both these teams do a lot of play action on offense, which allows them to be explosive. And it's one of those things where I want to see more of it. And so, yeah, they, NBC lucked out, man. They got the best game in Week 18, man, and
Yeah.
good call on getting this game as
Uh,
the Sunday night game.
one more question for you, Vic, before you move on. Do you think the
Yeah,
winner of this game goes to the Super Bowl?
no,
Hmm.
and the reason I'll say this, Gilbert, is because I just think top to bottom, the NFC playoff matchups are just gonna be the teams are really close to each other. I don't see one team being above the other one.
Yeah.
I understand that home field advantage is huge, and I understand all the numbers. I get it. 26 of the 50 some Super Bowl teams were the number one seed. So I understand. Half the time the number one seed goes on to the Super Bowl, right? But I
Yeah.
just with the NFC being so tough, Gilbert, I feel like it's going to be a lower seed team that ends up making it to the
Mm.
Super Bowl.
Interesting. I also kind of like that we haven't seen Philly play Minnesota or Detroit. Like we're gonna wait
Yes.
for the playoffs, so you just don't know about that. They haven't played each other this year, so
I just don't want to see a bunch of blowouts, man. I'd be so disappointed. You would think that in the playoffs we're gonna get a lot of close matchups, but seeing what happens, it's hard. Says Robert D says, so Vic, you picking the Eagles to go to the big game hurts to me. Is not a great quarterback to me. Honestly, I don't see the Eagles going to the Super Bowl, but I do like one of the lower seeds making it. I just feel like this conference is really tough to kind of pick, if I'm being completely honest. I mean, I could see the Rams making a run. I could see the Packers, the Vikings, whoever loses this game, I can see them going on a run. And by the way, if the Lions don't end up being the number one seed, I still like them to make a Super Bowl run.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I like I said, I would not be surprised if we see one of those teams from the lower seeds make it to the Super Bowl, Gilbert.
Yeah, no, good point. Like even if the loser is the fifth seed, I believe in the Vikings or the Lions could win a couple games or even get to the Super Bowl as a number five seed. I could definitely see that. And I could make a small tier for the Vikings and the Lions and the Eagles to be the top three, but the gap is not that wide. And I will not be surprised if the Rams make it to the Super Bowl or the Buccaneers make it to the Super Bowl. I will not be shocked. I'll be a little shocked that the Commanders make it there, even though I
Yeah.
put them in my redo pick just because I didn't want to see Lions and the Chiefs as a Super Bowl. But if they make it or Green Bay, I'd be a little surprised, but not really. When you think about it. But I think those five teams that I mentioned: Buccaneers, Rams, Eagles, Lions, Vikings. They all have a very fair shot to make it to the Super Bowl, but I wouldn't even count out the Packers or the Commanders either. And then who knows? Maybe the Falcons get into the field, but yeah, you never know.
Yeah, then we're talking about it. But yeah, I mean the Buccaneers beat both the Lions and the
Yeah,
Eagles. And
only team to do
that's
that.
one thing I'll tell you this, Gilbert. The Eagles do not want to see the Buccaneers in the first round.
Yeah, they have their number. They beat them in the
Yeah.
playoffs last year. They beat them in the regular season this year. And honestly, I get the Cowboys game for the Buccaneers is concerning, but if you take away that 4-game losing streak where they lost a bunch of good players to injury, this Buccaneers team has been pretty consistent and beating a bunch of teams. So, yeah, there's at least 5 teams that are very dangerous in this conference here. So we'll see how it plays out. But yeah, I wanted to get your mind, you pick your brain there on that question.
Yeah.
But yeah, we disagree there. And I got the Lions, you got the Vikings, and we'll see how it plays out for Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, Thomas Wilson has a question. Says everybody's saying Cup and Stafford are washed up. I disagree. I predict that Cup and Stafford will be ready for the playoffs, rejuvenated from their minor nagging injuries after a week off.
Yeah, I could. That's why I favor rest over a higher seed. People are saying, "What about the number 3 seed?" I'm like, does it really matter for like 4 or 3? If you get the 4 seed, you play the tired team from Sunday Night Football, Lions or Vikings, the loser. What if you get a Saturday game and that team has to come on 6 days' notice to LA and you're well rested? You never know. What if you get the 3 seed, you play the Commanders or the Packers, like I mentioned, they're maybe a little bit below the other top 5 teams in the conference, but 3 or 4, it doesn't matter to me. And once you get to a divisional round and you got Stafford and McVay and Cup, and you got Super Bowl experience on your side, that goes a long way too.
Yeah, and then the last time the Rams made it to the Super Bowl, they were the fourth seed, as someone pointed out, and then you're going to see a whole different playbook from McVay as well in the playoffs. I feel like we haven't seen his full, what he can do with this playbook, and I think he's going to show a little bit a different side of what he can do once the playoffs start, especially if it's against an opponent they haven't seen yet, whether it be the Commanders or it could be against the Packers, as you mentioned, where they just switch things up against Matt LaFleur. So yeah, good comment there, Thomas. And then Robert D says, to me, the key is to make Hurts be you with his arms, and you have to have a good chance of beating them. Then, yeah, the thing is that they'll all physical you, but I think one of the things is if you take Saquon away, we've seen Jalen Hurts and he hasn't been good passing the ball, which is why he got into it with AJ Brown.
Yeah, and he's kind of a first read, and if it's not there, he's gonna take off, and that
Yeah.
frustrated AJ Brown a little bit. Like, hey, can you be a little more patient in the pocket? I'm gonna get open eventually, man. Don't run away now. But I think that running aspect makes Saquon Barkley a little more dangerous too, especially in the RPO game. So you don't want to go away from the run too much, but also you want to establish a rhythm with the passing attack. And if you can't get on the same page, then yeah, maybe you could get caught up in a wild card upset loss, like Victor's alluding to. Maybe the Commanders or the Packers catch them, but they don't have that passing running rhythm like Lamar Jackson or even Jaden Daniels has. So I don't know what's going on with Jalen Hurts this season.
Yeah, and the other thing on the other side with Big Fangio, we've seen that if you get a mobile quarterback against him, he's going to shred that defense like we saw with Jaden Daniels. And I think that's another team we talked about with Baker. You might not want to see the Commanders again. I mean, we saw what Jaden Daniels did to it, and I get it. Jalen Hurts got hurt in that game, and a lot of people are saying, "Hey, had he not gotten hurt, they probably win that game." We don't know that. We saw. I mean, but at the same time, you got to be impressed with what Jaden Daniels did against that big Fangio defense. So we'll see. I mean, like I said, I'm really I'll be more intrigued by what I see from the NFC this season than I will. I think once we get into the later rounds with the AFC, because if and we'll get to this. This is a good transition to get to our next game, Gilbert, which is the Cincinnati Bengals are 1.5 point favorites at the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I feel like if the Bengals get in, then the AFC gets really interesting in the playoffs. If they don't, I really don't. I'll probably pass on a lot of these AFC games. If
Yeah,
it's if you get Chargers, Texans, you get but if you get Broncos versus Bills, it just looks like a lot of blowouts. If I'm being completely honest.
yeah, I'm with you, and I know a lot of people want to see the Bengals get in, and I think we're going to disagree here, Victor. But it's getting to a point again where people are starting to overrate the Bengals. They got pushed pretty hard by the Broncos, who were like, the Broncos are a 7 seed for a reason. They're kind of similar, right? The Broncos and the Bengals there, and we're trying to put Joe Burrow and his team on a pedestal up here, like they're a little higher, and then right now people are bashing Mike Tomlin. Oh, yeah, Mike Tomlin's a mediocre coach. So I'm a favor of the Steelers here just because they're home dogs. They're in Pittsburgh. And Mike Tomlin is saying that he's not going to rest his players, which honestly, Victor, I will probably rest my players. If you find out that the Ravens uh, win against the Browns on Saturday night and the division is over, why not
Yeah.
rest? You have a I guess a lack of depth behind Pickens and TJ Watt. Both players are dealing with injuries. Why not rest and take your chances against the Ravens in the 3-6 matchup? You get a week off. You know that team very well. You get an extra week to prepare. But Tomlin says he's not going to go for it. You know why? Because the Houston Texans are the four team, and everybody wants to play Houston. But I get it. So I think so if you rest his players, I get screwed out of this bet here. But I think Tomlin's going to play his players here, and we just saw not too long ago Russell Wilson carve up the secondary. Bo Nix carved up the secondary here for the Bengals. So in Pittsburgh, and I think Tomlin really wants to avoid a losing streak in the postseason. Imagine if you lose 4 games in a row, then you're really going to be one and done. I think they really want to win this game here. One for the Houston factor, one for the confidence booster to win here. And then we go talking about everything that the Bengals' weaknesses were earlier the year. Are you a better defense? Are you still top heavy? You also might not have Chase Brown in the lineup. I know they had Khalil Herbert as their other running back. But I could see a close game here. The first one was kind of it was a shootout. I think it was 44-38. But just because people are overrating the Bengals again, and they're a public play, and Pittsburgh's at home, they're a little gritty. They're pissed off that they haven't won a game in a while. I'm going to favor the Steelers for this one here.
Yeah, I mean, this the reason this matchup is intriguing as you talked about is because the Bengals have a shot at making the playoffs, and you kind of want to see this offense get into the dance, but you know, you can't forget about all the things of why they're in this position, Gilbert. They gave up way too many they gave away too many games. They gave up that game against New England. They gave up a couple games against the Ravens. I get it. They've been competitive, and I understand why people are back on the bandwagon in terms of wanting to see them get into the dance. But at the same time, like I look at this Pittsburgh Steelers team, and I've been telling you now for a couple of weeks, Gilbert, that I'm not a believer in them. I understand that what Mike Tomlin has done has been outstanding. You give him credit, but he always does this in December, Gilbert, and his teams since he hasn't had Ben Roethlisberger, they fade in December. And yes, it's a great story that he continues to win games, and he's over 500. He has never had a losing season, but at the same time, it's like, okay, what can we expect? We know what this team is. They play great defense. They do just enough on offense to win games, but we know that that's not the recipe when it comes to the playoffs. And so you're kind of just, if you're the Chargers, you're kind of rooting for the Bengals to win here, right? So then the Chargers need to win against the Raiders, and then they get the fifth seed, and they can win an extra game in the playoffs. But if you're Pittsburgh here, as you mentioned, why not just rest your guys and then go ahead and get ready for the playoffs and do that? But I think that's where everybody's coming from. But in terms of this game, I honestly, I don't know where to go because you're right. I mean, I would just stay with the Bengals just because they've been hot lately. It looks like they figured out something with just letting Joe Burrow do his thing. But as long as Zach Taylor doesn't get in the way, I believe that the Bengals win this game. But I still don't think they get in the playoffs, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah, it's strange to me that the Steelers are not considering more of a rest here. Like the Ravens so well, but maybe he does a little okey doke and he does rest his players after the Ravens beat down the Browns on in the early tilt of the Saturday doubleheader. But I could definitely see the Steelers, playing the Texans, and it's going to be a close, ugly game. And then Pittsburgh wins, and here they go on divisional round, and they get smacked by whoever they play in the second round. I could
Yeah,
just see it, and then we're going to be like, "Oh, Mike Tomlin's not one and done," so that's a win there.
yeah,
Uh, I don't know. I feel like rest would do this team a lot of good because they're very top heavy. We saw what happened when George Pickens was out; they had
yep,
no chance. So why not rest your guy who's still dealing with a hamstring injury? I don't get it. But because they're going to play hard and try to go for that victory, regardless of what happens with Baltimore, I'm a favor the Steelers here. But I'll say this, Vic. I think the Ravens got the short end of the stick here with the schedule. They got screwed over. Uh, they're going to be forced to play their starters regardless. Why does Pittsburgh get to say here that okay, we know the results here. I could start my players or rest them. The Ravens don't have that luxury. You're the first place team. You should have the luxury to say, all right, what did Pittsburgh do against the Bengals in the early game? And
right,
then you decide. But no, they got screwed over. And
yep,
then on the flip side, say the division is over and Mike Tomlin does rest his players against the Bengals. Now Cincinnati gets a gimme W, and we all
yep.
want to see Joe Burrow in the playoffs. So I think for me, a better week 18 to make it competitive would have been like,
Having these two teams at the same time, right?
that too for sure. That'll be. But if you want to have like a meaningful game, then make Steelers Bengals the first game of the day, and then put in like the Broncos and the Chiefs in the second game. People are
Yeah,
gonna watch the Chiefs even without Mahomes. The Broncos are still playing for something. I want to see if the Broncos could beat Carson Wentz. You never know.
yeah,
I don't know, maybe another crappy game. Like the Dolphins are still playing for something
yeah.
with the
Dolphins,
Browns.
Jets.
Yeah, it's hard. Dolphins
I'm
Jets and Aaron Rodgers could be his last game. Why not make that
yeah,
the doubleheader instead? You kind of screw over the Ravens here by forcing them to play their players. Like the Buccaneers and the Falcons was perfect because they're both playing at the same time on Sunday. They're both playing for the division, but for some reason they screwed over Lamar Jackson and the Ravens there. But it is the Browns. I get it. Maybe I'm kind of just complaining for no reason. They're going to blow them out by the second quarter. But the Browns
Yeah.
did beat the Ravens earlier this year.
Yeah, I think that, and I mean, and we'll get to it in our best bets, but we have the highest line we've seen this season
Ooh.
at -20 in
Hmm.
that game as well. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. But I'll make one last point in terms of the Bengals here and the Steelers, and I felt like the Chiefs exploited one of the weaknesses for the Steelers, and that was the quick pass game. I mean, that game against the Steelers by the Chiefs, that was Mahomes in terms of the shortest amount of time he had in terms of how quickly he got rid of the ball was one of the best of his career, Gilbert. And he was just getting rid of the ball because he knew that against this top seven front of the Steelers, you need to get rid of the ball.
Hmm.
And it worked to perfection. I can see Joe Burrow doing the same thing because he's got a terrible O line in front of him. So you get the ball out. And I think this is what you mentioned, though, is not having Chase Brown will be huge if Pittsburgh does play all their starters.
Yeah. Imagine if you have to drop back a lot and you're gonna give TJ Watt all these opportunities to pass rush you. And I think with the Chiefs though, what's different, Vic, is they don't I guess they have Xavier Worthy. They have somebody to go vertical, but they have a lot of guys that play around the line of scrimmage. So
Yeah.
so you can play the quick game. I don't know if Burrow has enough of those guys. T. Higgins and Chase are more down the field guys. Uh and then also
Joshua Boss is one of those guys.
yeah, maybe he steps up here, but also the Chiefs have a better offensive line. Ever since they moved Joe Tooney to left
Yep.
tackle,
That's a
all
good
their
point.
problems have been gone. So it's a different team, different game. But again, we saw a shootout between the Steelers and the Bengals. But hey, if we see a competitive game, I'm all for. I really enjoyed that game last Saturday, Bengals Broncos. That was really fun. So I'm
Yep.
for that. But yeah, see, we got a couple comments here too.
Yeah, let's get to those. I wanted to get to that next. Robert D says Denver is the one team I do not want to see in the dance. Do you agree with?
I feel like Robert is trolling me. Really? He's a Chargers fan, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
I would
Denver.
think it would be the Chargers.
Maybe more for viewing purposes. Like they'll be very boring to watch.
Yes.
Maybe that could be it. You don't want to watch them because let's keep it real. If the Denver's playing Buffalo, they're gonna get smacked
Yes.
by 24 points or 30. I don't want to see that. At least with Joe Burrow, is an element to maybe beat them because they have a good offense. But we know at the end of the day, the Bills have a better team overall than the Bengals because they're 8-8 for a reason. So even that could be a kind of a blowout. But it'll be fun to watch Josh Allen and Joe Burrow. But yeah, I think he's going off a viewership standpoint.
Yeah, and then he also says weather could be a problem also in that game. I guess it would be the Bengals and Steelers game.
Yeah, I haven't checked the weather, but I could do a little quick search here.
Yeah, and then Thomas Wilson asks, "Who do you think has the best defense between the Steelers and the Ravens?" I think man for man is the Steelers, but I really like what I've seen from the Ravens lately. We talked about it on our show House of Horns. You have to give Zach Orr a lot of credit for moving Kyle Hamilton back to safety and then away from the box there, and then shuffling some new guys in there as well. I think that has really helped their defense out. But I still think Steeler has a better defense, right?
Yeah, and real quick, Pittsburgh weather is gonna be 24 degrees on Saturday.
Yeah.
That's freaking cold. I'm wearing a beanie when it's 60 degrees out in California. So, yeah, well, maybe that factors in for Joe Burrow's offense. I doubt it, but we'll see. And yeah, to the question, I think it's still Pittsburgh too. But I have been impressed, like Victor mentioned, with Baltimore's changes, and also like let's give Zach Orr some credit, not for just a second half turnaround. That run defense has been number one pretty much all year, so he's been doing a good job there.
Yeah, and I'm like I said, I'm going with the Steelers here. Robert D says, but will Tua play versus the Jets?
That's the thing. It's not looking likely, but because they're still in a playoff hunt, they
Yeah.
can maybe put them out there. But that's why I was surprised that the line was only -1
One.
Miami. I thought it'd be a little higher, but that's because Snoop Huntley is probably going to play.
Yeah. And I mean, we'll see if the Jets even are trying. I mean, I will, and
Hey,
that's
Aaron
also,
Rodgers' final game. I don't know, man.
yeah,
You would think you want to play hard for the guy, but does he
yep.
have that locker room's attention? I don't know.
Yeah, Gus Honest True says, I hope Pittsburgh beats them. My fantasy opponent has Burrow and Chase, but I think Pittsburgh wants to eliminate Cincinnati. If they beat them in its season finale at home and need a win to set the
Mhm.
mindset positive.
Yeah, I think we're in the same thinking there. God's honest truth. And if you're playing fantasy football in week 18, man, hopefully you get some help there. But yeah, we've been looking for people who have been playing week 18, so we finally
So
found one,
we
Victor.
found somebody here. One more from Robert D here said, no, we beat them 2 times. Hard to beat a team 3 times in the
Ah,
season. So
okay.
he's
That's a
talking more about the. I
yeah,
don't think you're going to see the Broncos in the playoffs,
yeah, that
Robert.
too.
It'd be hard for me to see that, but we'll see.
Yeah, and it'd be if the Chargers get the Houston Texans, I could see that
Then they
obviously.
face a rematch against the Chiefs.
Yeah, that'd be a good one. I could definitely see the Chargers winning that game, but it'll be something for them to overcome because they've never really won one playoff game with Justin Herbert. So maybe that mental aspect could be a little challenging. But yeah, I would definitely like the Chargers more than if they're playing the Texans over the Ravens.
Yeah, the same here. God's Honest Drew says, I'm down 48 points, got Lamar and Tucker, then Warren and the mouth. Trying to be strategic, and hopefully after the game, I'll be maybe 8 points behind
Uh,
heading into Sunday.
he's talking about Pat Fryer move, the move.
Yeah, the
Uh,
move.
So he got his tight end there, Jalen Warren. Okay, down 48. You got Lamar. Who are we talking about? Tucker here? Is it the
I'm
guy?
guessing it's Tucker the
Oh, the
is
kicker,
the
Justin
kicker.
Tucker. Oh, okay. There you
Yeah,
go.
because he's playing in that game.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you got a chance with Lamar. He could definitely get you 48 in a game too. Uh,
Yes.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
we'll see how long he plays though.
yeah, that is true. Actually, if they're in a blowout, they'll probably sit him for a quarter or two.
Yeah, Robert D says Roger Seal needs one touchdown for number 500. So
Yeah.
there's also that. He just broke the record for most interceptions all time. He passed Tom Brady.
Yeah. Or was it sacks? I think it was sacks taken.
Was it sacks
Yeah,
or yeah,
sacks.
I think you're right. It was sacks.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was another one that he joined. I'm sure he wasn't happy about that, so he wants to at least get to 500, as Robert D mentioned. All right, Gilbert, we're to our betting locks of week 18. So I pretty much I'm up 22 points on you, 143 to 121. It's pretty much over at this point. So we're in week 18. We're giving our best bets though. We want to make sure we go out on a high note. You did pretty good. You got three. I think it was 4 out of 5 last week, which got you closer. But I just had built too big of a lead, and then I got like 3 of them, which were I think 5, 4, and my number 2 best bets. All right, Gilbert. Let's start off with yours. Your best bets for week 18.
Yeah, I want to go back to my trend here, the one that I've gotten right since I want to say since December 1st. So I'm gonna go with. I know it goes away from my from my pick, but just because I like the trend,
Yeah,
you never know. Cover my bases. I'm gonna go Bengals
yeah.
minus 1.5, just to see what happens. And then I have like a strategy here. I know it doesn't make sense, but I do pick the Steelers to win just because I think they're gonna be competitive and they're a better team. But hey, maybe I'm completely wrong, and the Bengals go minus 1.5. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, I like this one honestly, and we talked a lot about this one. I just think they found something, and I think they continue to go with it. So we'll see what happens with this one. All right, number 4.
This one definitely, like I mentioned at the top of the show, I like the Lions. I think a lot of people are starting to get on the Vikings bandwagon. People are forgetting that the Lions are still very good offensively. They're at home. I'll take it minus 2.5.
Okay, number 3. I like this one.
Yeah, so goes back to so I'm kind of hedging my bet here. So if the Bengals win, I get my 5 pointer. But
Yep.
if my Steelers pick comes true, then I get 4.5 points for the Raiders playing a Chargers team that has nothing to play for. So if the Steelers beat the Bengals, they're locked into number 5 most likely because I think the Ravens are going to beat the Browns. So it'll be Texans, Steelers wild card matchup. Then if you're the Chargers, you're locked into number 6. Jim Harbaugh's thinking, all right, he's standing like this with his khakis and thinking, yeah, I'm gonna rest my guy, my Justin Herbert, my quarterback. You're gonna rest here. So I can see the backups in is it Taylor Heineke now, not Easton Stick playing. So I'll take the Raiders at home plus 4.5. They're still trying to win games for AP.
Antonio. Yep.
Antonio Pierce. I think he might get fired after that game, but we'll
Yep.
see. So you know how it is. You about to get fired. You want to screw over the draft pick. So I'll take the Raiders plus 4.5. And say my plan doesn't work where the Chargers backups are playing. I can still see a competitive game just because AP wants to stick it to the front office. Yeah, you're gonna fire me, but here goes your draft pick. Down the toilet.
Yep. If they lose this game, they cannot go any lower than the number 10 pick. So even if they win this game, if you're the Raiders, you will go down to no lower than the number 10 pick. Yeah, I like this one in terms of I kind of was hoping this would be a little bit more competitive. And I kind of want to see everything happen where the Bengals win and then this becomes a competitive just for week 18. But we'll see. I mean, knowing I wonder if Jim Harbaugh still decides to he tries to play his starters just to kind of have them ready for the playoffs, but we'll see. I don't know what kind of a in
Yeah.
terms of that if he's a I'm gonna sit my guys and get ready for the playoffs type
It's
of
tough
coach.
because he hasn't been around in the NFL for 9 years. So what is he thinking? So
Yeah,
honestly, regardless of what happens, if the Bengals win and the Chargers have something to play for, the Chargers are going to win. Obviously, they'll probably blow out the Raiders, and my pick here is doesn't look good. I just think the Steelers are going to beat the Bengals. So what do you like? What do you really play for? Just have momentum. We saw what happened to Mike Williams with Brandon Staley, and everybody gave Brandon Staley a bunch of crap here. So uh, yeah, even if they have to play for something, I see the Chargers win, and maybe I get Raiders to cover. But Chargers
yeah,
are definitely the favorite team to win. This is just more about strategy and Week 18 being weird as because it's going to be
yep,
quirky and randomness and results has to happen. So I'll take a chance here.
yeah. And then Robert D says no, Chargers still have to win and get the number 5 spot,
But if the
guys. So
Steelers win the day before, Robert, you don't have that opportunity. So that's what
yep,
I'm saying. You might have to
yep.
rest people.
Yeah, and then he saw if the Steelers lose to the
Yeah.
Bengals, that
So I'm
is. So
guessing Robert's going for the Bengals here.
yep, he's rooting hard. I know a
But
lot of Chargers fans.
also too, like I don't like being in a very competitive game in week 18 before the wild card playoffs. Like, do you really want to have Justin Herbert out there?
Yep,
I don't know. I favor rest more than anything. I get that the Chargers haven't played the Ravens well, but Jim Harbaugh knows his brother. He's going to be very competitive. He wants to beat his brother. You never know.
yep. Yeah, I'm with you. We'll see what happens though. This is going to be a very interesting game, depending on what happens Saturday. Just because, you have, like you said, you have a lame dump coach on probably on his way out with all the Mike Brable rumors. Now it's funny we talked about Mike Brable 2 weeks ago, and then all of a sudden you just start hearing more and more now.
Yeah, I forgot about the Brady Brable connection. It makes sense. And one more thing on this game, Victor. If the Steelers take the fifth seed, this line's going to be probably a pick 'em or maybe a Raiders -1. It's going to be weird.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah. Your number two is Giants +3 versus the Eagles.
Yeah, it's funny because when I talked to John, the odds makers at the Westgate, he's kind of like, "I'm not gonna lie to you, man. I had no idea what to make for this line here, so I just said, F it, home team -3. Here you go, Philadelphia." But
Yeah.
uh, you would think that the Giants, will lose to get a better draft pick, but they won last week against the Colts, and Brian Dable, I don't know if he's gonna get fired, for sure, like AP. But they're still playing hard. So maybe I take the Giants +3 here, and maybe they want to keep brewing in their stupid draft pick here. They're dumb if they do. But it's Tanner McKee against the Giants starter, so I'd take a chance here. But it's funny hearing that he had no idea what to do. So in that situation, just put -3 home team.
Yeah, and then the Eagles could be trying to, F the Giants here too, because if they go
Mhm.
out there and
Yeah.
they rest all their starters, that kills the Giants draft picks and that makes them so in a way you're kind of working against the Giants, your divisional rival. Like, hey, why am I gonna help you improve your draft position when we're already set at the as a number two seed. So yeah, if I'm the Eagles, I'm not helping the Giants. So I
Uh,
like this line. Honestly, when I saw you picked it, I honestly thought you have it higher, but this is a sneaky good pick right now at the Giants plus
Yeah,
three.
I'm kind of having fun with all the picks here because it's a strategy and weirdness of week 18. So I'm trying new
Yeah.
things here. And one more thing on the Saquon Barkley thing where he's gonna, rest instead of break the record. yeah, you can break the record against your former team and stick it to them, but I think the better thing is to make them win and have a worse
Yep.
draft pick. That's
Oh yeah.
overall for you screw them over for many years like that.
Yeah, and then that means they have to trade up
Mhm.
to get their quarterback. So
That's
yeah,
a
if
better
I'm
way to look at
yeah,
it. You're
this is good
Saquon.
strategy by the Eagles. Honestly, like in a way, it ends up helping them even if they lose this game. So
Yeah,
yeah, shout out to the Eagles for playing 3D chess here. Your number one is Chiefs +10 versus the
yeah.
Broncos, which I love.
Yeah,
Honestly,
I'll keep it quick here.
yeah.
Are we sure the Broncos are gonna beat the Chiefs? Everybody's just
I
assuming
I
it.
I I don't think so. I'll be honest.
You never know. I know they're playing the backups here, but Carson Wentz beat the 49ers last year, so I'll take the 10 here. That's a high number. I know they're in Denver too, but I'll take the Chiefs. That's why it's my number one. I don't know what to expect, but I'm not 100% convinced the Broncos are gonna win this game.
No, neither am I. I mean, I understand everybody looks to the game earlier in the season where the Broncos had the field goal blocked and they should have won that game, but like you said, we saw Carson Wentz last year with the Rams go into San Francisco and win a meaningless game as well. Like he's gonna I'll tell you what, I don't know what the FanDuel is on his rushing yards, but if it's over the over under is 20 yards, Carson Wentz gonna have over 20 yards rushing. So if
Yeah.
you can find that one, he's gonna run the ball in this game. So Robert D says 10 points is way too high for me. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's a high number.
Yeah,
I
I'll
mean,
I'll take a chance here.
yeah, and the Chiefs can rest every guy. Yeah, Patrick Mahomes and Kelsey and Jones are not gonna play. Will McDuffie play? We don't know. I mean, there's those guys, but that team is still pretty good. We saw what they did against the Steelers. With some of those guys, with some of their backups. So yeah, I love this one. Chiefs
Okay.
+10. Yeah. And why? And I get it. Like a lot of people are saying, well, why would the Broncos want to help would the Chiefs want to help the Broncos instead of the Bengals? And is it because they don't want to see Joe Burrow in the playoffs? They wouldn't face Joe Burrow till the championship game.
Yeah,
It
they
yeah
wouldn't make it past Buffalo, I feel
yeah
like. But and
yeah
also, it's not even about helping anybody, it's about resting your players.
yeah. So yeah, I'm with you. At this point, if I'm the Chiefs, I try to knock out the Broncos. Like why would you want to see your division rival make it into the playoffs?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
I'm sure that's
I'm
what
with
the
you.
backups are thinking right now.
Yeah, all right. My best bets for week 5. I mean for week 18. Sorry, my number 5 is Vikings versus Lions. The over is
Mm,
56.5. I told you, Gilbert. When it's the Lions or the Bills, I'm usually taking the over here. We've seen what the Vikings have done lately, and then same thing. The Vikings and Packers hit the over. The Lions and 49ers hit the over. Both of these teams are going to score points in this Sunday night game. So
yeah,
give me the over in this
I
game.
I
I
like
can
it.
see it going over. Yeah, I
It's
can.
freaking
Oh,
high. It could
yeah.
be 60, and I will probably still take it, but I'm
Yep.
with you.
Yeah, this one's going to go over 60. As Robert E talked about the weather here, that's why I looked
Mm,
at this. My number 4 is Bengals versus Steelers. The under is 48. The over just barely went over with the Bengals and the Broncos last week, Gilbert, and it had to go to overtime for it to happen. So you're talking about a bad weather game. The Steelers play really well at home. We know how it can turn into an ugly game there. I still like the Bengals to win the game, but I think this game is going to be one of those 20-17 games where they hit the under in this one. My number 3 is the Buccaneers versus the Saints. The over is 43.5. The Buccaneers, if I'm not mistaken, they're going to play their starters in this game, and we saw what they did with the Carolina Panthers. They're going to want to score a bunch of points. They don't care. It's a divisional opponent. They're not going to let down unless they're up by like 20 points. So I can see them scoring 40 points on themselves. I just need the Saints to score at least 10 points, which I can see because the Buccaneers defense will allow some points in this game. My number 2 is the Chargers versus the Raiders. I like the over in this game. I think this game is going to mean something for both of these teams. And we've seen the Raiders play a little bit better offense lately now that Aiden O'Connell is the guy. And then the Chargers, if they're playing a terrible team, that we've seen them score over 30 points like against the Patriots. So I like the over in this game as well. And then my number 1, just to keep with tradition the last few
mm.
weeks, give me the Browns +20. I mean, we know the Ravens are going to win this game, but this is the highest number we've seen this season, Gilbert. And I just think the Browns at least are going to, they beat them earlier in the season. Why not at least keep it by at least by 20 points?
Yeah, that's a very high number, but you gotta factor in maybe Lamar Jackson not playing in the 4th quarter, maybe they get a backdoor,
Yep.
cover for the Browns here, so I like that for you taking a chance. The one I kinda hesitate on because 'cause you're doubling down, and if you're right, you're right, but if, say the Steelers beat the Bengals and you have, Taylor Heinicke in there for the Chargers to get that over, it's gonna be a little tough for you.
Yeah, the Chargers and Raiders one. Yeah, that's gonna be hard, but I just have a feeling that this game's gonna mean something, and both teams are gonna play their starters, and
Yeah.
it's gonna be one of those games that is, they're gonna score. Each of them are gonna score over 20 points. So that's what I'm hitching my wagon on here. I want to get to these comments before we get to our quick dump offs. Uh, Thomas Wilson says Mike Brabo could turn the Raiders organization to a positive.
Yeah, he kinda brings that, intensity and the passion that Antonio Pierce provides, but Mike Brable is way higher when it comes to game management and coaching a football game, and he's a little conservative too, though, I don't like that, and he's a little more old school, but, I've seen this guy thrive in situational football, and when there's 5 minutes to go, like, there's times he was annoying Bill Belichick with the head game, so I want a coach that could do that, so that's a very hard skill to find nowadays, so that's why I agree with Thomas here.
Yeah, I was a little bit hesitant in terms of him getting this, that he would be up for this job for the Raiders or any NFL job, because it also depending on whether Ohio State got beat versus Oregon, because he could have gotten that job with Ohio State, but now that he's moved, the Ohio State is in the top 4 now, or in the last 4, then
Yeah,
it sounds like Mike Brabo is going to be an NFL coach, because I don't see
yeah,
the head coach of the Buckeyes losing his job now.
yeah, Ryan Day,
Brian
but
Day.
there's a lot of pressure on that job, though, if you don't get to at least a national title game, maybe he still gets fired, but yeah.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. And then it would be cool to see Mike Brabo with the rest of those coaches, Andy Reid, Jim Harbaugh, and Sean Payton. That'll be a good,
Yeah,
4 good coaches there. I think the weakest link is AP there, so I could see them being, at least in the conversation if you have a Mike Brabo in as your coach.
yeah, and I thought he did a good job with Will Levis to the most part, he was a little bit of hard ass on Levis, but hey, it worked out because he had a better rookie year, then we saw what happened with Tannehill, he revitalized his career, but Derrick Henry helped out with that too.
Yeah, Robert D says Evans needs 85 yards for his 1,000. Baker says he wants to
Ooh,
help him get to tie Rice's
yeah,
record. So
I
that's
want I
another
wanna
thing.
see that for sure.
Yeah, well, yeah, especially he'll join, what is it? Jerry Rice, is it Randy Moss as he only wants to do it for
No,
11 straight season?
right now, the record is for like Mike Evans has a record to start a career. I think that was to pass Randy Moss 10 consecutive, but now for overall in a career is 11, and Jerry Rice is the only one to do it. So he will tie Jerry Rice with 11
Okay, cool.
consecutive. But it's
Yeah,
it's impressive that Jerry Rice didn't do it to start his career. This is Mike Evans is still doing it to start his career.
yeah, that is pretty cool, and he'll be a Hall of Famer for sure. All right, Gilbert, let's get to our quick dump offs, where we go and we pick the rest of these games. The Bills and New England. The Bills are 2.5 point favorites. The over under is 38. Who you got in this game? Is it just Bills, even with their backups in there?
Yeah, if Drake May was gonna go, I will definitely maybe lean Patriots, but I think they haven't decided on what's going on with Drake May and Brissett. So for that, I'll go with the Bills right now.
Yeah, give me the Bills in this game as well. I'm with you. All right, Chicago Bears at the Green Bay Packers -10. Are the Packers? They are the favorites, and the over under is 41 in this game.
I'll take the Bears plus 10, Packers to win, but I think they let off the gas here because are you really going to play that hard? Just because you want to get the 6th seed, does it really matter? 7 or 6? Play the Eagles or play the Rams. I don't know. So I think maybe the Packers they'll be smart about it.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. The Bears cover here, but I think the Packers win this game, and I don't think we see Jordan Love in the second. I think
Yeah.
we see Malik Willis either in the second, or we see him in the just at least the first half, but we might just see him in the first quarter. But I'm
Yep.
with you. I think the Bears have a long off season coming up, and at least they'll try to play well for Thomas Brown, which I hate that he's put in this situation because he was put in a lose situation.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Jacksonville at the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts are 5-point favorites, and the over under is 44.
Man, the story that came out on the Colts today, it's not looking good at all over there for Steichen, Richardson, Gus Bradley, the DC. So
They
give
might
me the
clean house, right?
yeah, they might, and yeah, that story had made a point. They haven't done anything since Andrew Luck retired, so they've been mediocre for a long time. Give me the Jaguars. They've been actually doing well for me. I've been picking them, so give me the Jaguars to just win and get an upset here. So give me +5 and an upset.
Yeah, like Peterson just keeps winning, and like he's like one of those where he's like, I don't care. I know I'm probably not back any
Well, they have a
these next.
quarterback anyway, so it doesn't. It's not
Yeah,
really gonna matter.
exactly. Yeah. Carolina Panthers at the Atlanta Falcons. Falcons are 8-point favorites. Over under is 48.
I was very impressed with Penix, so give me Michael Penix Jr. to cover here. Falcons -8.
Yeah, I like the Falcons in this game, and we'll see what happens with the Saints and the Saints and Bucks. I think the Bucks get into the playoffs, but we've seen weirder things happen before, Gilbert.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah. You can't
we'll see what
you can't
happens
just
there.
assume right now.
Yeah, Texans, Houston Texans at the Tennessee Titans. The Titans are -1. Over under is 37.
Yeah, Titans are dog crap. They're not gonna do anything. Give me the backups in Houston.
Yeah, same. I'm with you on that one. Washington Commanders -6. Over under is 48 at the Dallas Cowboys. Do they play their starters here? What do you think
That's
happens?
another. They're kind of like the Packers too. What are you really doing here? Do you want to get the 6th seed or the 7th? Do you care? Uh, Honestly, if they're playing for the 6th seed, it kind of makes it feel like you're scared of the Eagles. I don't want to. I don't want to see that. So rest up. So I'll go Cowboys to cover. I mean Commanders to win. I guess. Who's their backup? Mariota. You never know.
Yeah, Mariota could. I mean, the Dallas is pretty much thrown the towel now. With CD out,
Hmm.
so who knows? We'll see what happens. Miami Dolphins are 1-point favorite. Over under here is 39 at the New York Jets.
Yeah, I got to get on Aaron Rodgers' good side after I called him a quitter last week. So give me the Jets to win here for Aaron Rodgers' farewell game, and see you later.
Yeah, I kind of want to see the situation where where we see the Bengals get in, and I can see the Jets kind of doing something just to f with everybody. And I know Aaron Rodgers wants to make sure that he leaves on a good note, and that way he can keep people intrigued because according to him he's an enigma. So I mean, we'll see. Well, I think he'll try his best to try to beat the Dolphins here, and that way, the story becomes about him and him throwing for his what is it, his 500 career
Yeah,
touchdown.
gonna try to be like Kobe and get 60 in his
Yep,
retirement game.
they're gonna try to feed him there. All right, we talked about that one, and then we got Seahawks -6.5. Over under is 38 at the Los Angeles
I
Rams.
just realized we never made a pick on House of Horns. I don't know, and we didn't really need to, but
No,
I'll go with the Seahawks to win, and I'll say the Rams cover. They'll make it interesting with Jimmy G.
yeah, I like the Rams to win this game. Just I think Jimmy G is gonna, do something. We'll have like Mike LaFleur calling plays out there, and then like I said, it'll be interesting to see how many guys rest here for the Rams. We know it's gonna be Stafford, probably Cooper Cup and Puka Nakua, but who else is gonna? And I want to see some Jonah Jackson in this game. The guy they paid a bunch of money and hasn't played much as one of their interior linemen there. So yeah, give me the Rams here to not only cover but also win, or give me the points, I should say. Last one, and then it'll go off of the comment that we have there from God's honest truth. I'll get to that next, but the 49ers are 4-point favorites at the Arizona Cardinals. Or did this line change again now that we don't know if Brock Purdy's going to play?
No, I think it's Arizona that's -4, and the 49ers are +4.
Yeah.
I'll do a quick double check here. Yeah, +4 49ers, -4 Cardinals. So, yeah,
I
because the
got to
Brock Purdy
change.
injury, the Cardinals are definitely the favorite, but I'll take the points here. I think the 49ers can beat this team. Man, the Cardinals were such a major disappointment. They can't figure out their offense with Kyler Murray. So, and Joy, sorry, not Joy. Nick Bosa looked pretty good on Monday night. So you never know.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, give me the Cardinals. I like them at home. I picked them in our. I need to beat you in our season picks. So give me the Cardinals in this game. Let me get to this comment by God Honest Truth. He says, "I believe that Dobbs playing this week. He and Jennings will go off. They were teammates at Tennessee, and Purdy's job could be in jeopardy. Remember when Dobbs got in the last game? He got into in the score. So, yeah, that'll be something for you,
Huh.
Gilbert.
Yeah, Josh Dobbs, right?
Yep.
Yeah, he played well for the Vikings, so you never know. So I need Dobbs to do something for me this week. So
We'll
I
see
like
if
that.
it's him. Last they started the other guy last time.
Oh,
Uh,
Brandon Allen, right?
yeah, Brandon Allen. So we'll
Yeah,
see if
put in
it's
Dobbs instead. That'd be better.
yeah. One more I forgot comment here from God's Honest True that I forgot about. Chesby for the Detroit and San Fran game. I was down 79 points. Just 2 plays left with Kittle and Bates. The Detroit kicker Campbell pissed me off because he takes a gamble. Freak
Yeah.
lost 6 points, shaking my head.
Yeah, that's the tough part about having a kicker for the Lions. Jake Bates has been a good kicker, but they go for it on fourth down too many times.
Yeah, and then 2 more comments here from Robert D. Says Dolphins and Jets could be a weather game also, so expect a low scoring game in
Mhm.
that game.
Yeah,
A lot
it's
of
in
running the
New Jersey.
yep. And then Robert D says Murray can't wait to pro game again. Laugh out loud.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll see what Kyler Murray does,
Uh,
but yeah,
yeah, Call of Duty. So
yeah,
we'll see what happens
you
with
have the
Kyler.
entire offseason to play Call of Duty.
Yep, exactly. All right, Gilbert, that does it for week 18. We've gone over, I think, the two big games that everybody is going to be watching is the Bengals and Steelers. That is, if Mike Tomlin decides to play the starters or not, that'll be great. We'll see if that happens. But for sure, Minnesota and the Detroit Lions is our big game of the week. Um, can't wait for that one on Sunday night. But yeah, week 18, a lot of starters being a lot of starters being they're sitting out. But yeah, we're getting ready for the playoffs in a couple weeks. Can't wait for that, Gilbert.
Yeah, so I can't wait for week 18. We have to wait until Sunday night for the Vikings Lions game, but we had a good breakdown here. Had some good discussions here. God's on his truths. Let us know about what's going on in week 18 for fantasy football. We needed that. We appreciate that. Robert D holding it down, chatting with us all night here. Thomas Wilson jumping in. That's awesome. So we appreciate the comments here. But yeah, we've been here for the last 2-3 hours from House of
Yep.
Horns to Gilberto's hours. So it was a weird week with the Happy New Year there for everybody. And yeah, that's the final Gilberto's hour of the season. And going forward, we'll probably just have four compas on Tuesdays, and then we'll finish out what's up bolts and House of Horns, depending on how far the Rams and the Chargers go. Check out our interview with Eric Williams that we had on Four Compas last week, where we asked Eric who's going to go further in the playoffs, the Chargers or the Rams. Dan and Diego put up a video on our social media account at Compas on the Beat. Check that out for Instagram. And people were fighting in the comments who's going to go further, the Chargers or the Rams. So, yeah, we'll see how how that shakes out there. But yeah, come back on Tuesday. We'll have the four guys here. We'll discuss everything going on for the wild card, everything that happened in Week 18. So getting down to the final month of football, and then the guys will be headed to New Orleans for Super Bowl Radio Row.
Yeah, can't wait for that. Already making plans. It'll be a good time up there just to be able to bring great content like we did the last couple years. So, yep. And then the playoffs coming up. Like I said, really, really looking forward to the NFC and how stacked that conference is, and then the AFC top loaded. But we can always expect a couple of upsets here and there. So, yeah, it'll be there's a lot to look forward to in the playoffs as well.
Yeah, it's time to get out of here. But one final promo here because we are trying to get to New Orleans, and that costs money. We got a merch site that'll be one way to help us out here and fundraise for us to get to New Orleans. You can get a hat or you get a shirt. This Compas on the Beat shirt. So check out the merch site. There goes the link right there. Or if you can help us out, with when you're watching one of the lives, providing a super sticker, super like, super whatever. That's what I like to say. But to donate money on the live chat, that's always helpful. People have been doing it. It's been awesome, and it's definitely made our lives easier to get to New Orleans and to cover big events like that. But also just amazing that we have support like that. It definitely goes a long way. But Yeah, no pressure, whatever you can provide, but no worries here. Just want to share that real quick. But it's time to get going here. That's the end of Gilberto's Hour. Thank you for making this a fun show, something to look forward to after Thursday Night Football, because there's times I have a lot of hot takes to unleash after these terrible games or exciting games or whatever's coming up in football. And then just talking betting with Victor and then talking to you about fantasy football has been fun all year. So that was a good season 2 of Gilberto's Hour. Let's do it again for season 3. But it's time to get going, time to focus on the playoffs. Like Victor said, a lot of good games here. So, que nos vamos, pues, vámonos.